Have you ever noticed how the most ethical men are often the most disrespected? Men who follow the rules, who avoid conflict, who act justly, and who, at the end, are overlooked, manipulated, or thrown away by those who play dirtier and smarter. This is the silent tragedy of the good man in the modern world. You do everything right. You're honest at work. You play fair in relationships. You speak with kindness. You live by the book. And still, people lie to you, step on you, take credit for your work, and walk away without consequences. Why? Because ethics alone doesn't protect you. Power does. In a world governed by perception, self-interest, and silent wars, being good is not enough. Sometimes it's the very thing that gets you killed, socially, professionally, strategically. You were taught to be ethical. You were never taught to be strategic. From school to corporate boardrooms, society praises obedience and punishes cunning. You're told to do the right thing, but they never tell you what happens when the world doesn't play by the same rules. You followed the moral code. Others followed opportunity. You believed loyalty was sacred. They saw it as leverage. You gave them your best. They took it and gave you nothing in return. This isn't about becoming a villain. It's about not being a victim. The modern man is stuck in a moral trap. He thinks doing what's right guarantees a reward. But life isn't a classroom. It's a battlefield. And on the battlefield, virtue without force is a funeral. The hard truth? The world doesn't care about your ethics. It cares about your effectiveness. Think about it. Would you rather work with someone who's 100% honest but incompetent, or someone cunning but who gets the job done? Would you rather follow a leader who's kind but weak, or one who's ruthless but protects you? Would you rather be respected or merely liked? These are not theoretical questions. They define your future. Because the man who tries to be good to everyone ends up being respected by no one. Real respect comes from power, not purity. You can be ethical and still be weak. You can be righteous and still be irrelevant. And in today's world, irrelevance is death. The ethical man assumes that truth, fairness, and kindness will speak for themselves. But in the real world, those values mean nothing without strategy, control, and the capacity to act with precision. This is where Machiavelli shatters the illusion. He didn't write The Prince to glorify cruelty. He wrote it to warn you, if you don't learn how power works, you'll always be at the mercy of those who do. So here's the question that will guide this video. Do you want to be good, or do you want to be effective? Because in the jungle of modern life, being ethical without being strategic is like bringing a prayer to a gunfight. Ethics makes you feel safe. Strategy makes you be safe. Let's break something open. Idealistic morality is not a shield. It's a sedative. It comforts you while the wolves close in. It whispers, "You did the right thing," while your enemies take what's yours. Why do people cling to it? Because it gives them the illusion of control in a world that's chaotic, competitive, and cruel. It tells them, if I'm a good person, good things will happen to me. But the universe doesn't obey that logic. People don't play fair, and the game doesn't care how nice you are. Morality, as sold to modern men, is pacifying. It's not the morality of warriors. It's the morality of domestication. A system designed to produce predictable, compliant, easily managed men. Ask yourself, who benefits when you always do the right thing, even when others don't? The answer, they do. Your boss, your partner, your competitors. They benefit from your restraint, your hesitation, your unwillingness to strike back. You become the stable pawn they can count on, not the king, not the player, just the piece. And here's the most twisted part. They'll praise your morality, right up until they use it against you. You say, "I won't retaliate. That's not who I am." They say, "Good. That makes you predictable." You say, "I don't want to manipulate people." They say, "Perfect. That means I can manipulate you." It's not that ethics is wrong. It's that unconditional ethics is suicidal. Because power doesn't operate on what's right. It operates on what's possible. Virtue is not morality. It's moral flexibility. Machiavelli never said to abandon ethics. He said to use them as tools, not chains. When it benefits you to appear just, do it. When it serves your mission to show mercy, use it. But never forget, strategy first, morality second. If your ethics keep you from acting when action is needed, they are not virtues. They are weaknesses, weaponized against you. Look at history. How many kings lost their thrones trying to be merciful to their enemies? How many CEOs were eaten alive because they played fair while rivals played smart? How many men were left behind, hearts broken and reputations shattered, because they thought doing the right thing would win love, loyalty, or power? Idealistic morality feels noble, right up to the moment you realize you've been checkmated. In chess, the most ethical piece is the pawn, obedient, straightforward, sacrificed first. The most powerful, the queen, ruthless, flexible, deadly. What kind of piece are you playing? Because if you're still hoping that moral purity will save you, you're not even in the game. You're on the board, being moved by those who are. There's a harsh fork in the road most men refuse to see. You can be just or you can be effective. You want both. Of course you do. But in the real world, one will often cost the other. Justice is about fairness. Effectiveness is about results. And when the two collide, only one puts food on your table, wins the war, or secures your legacy. Let's stop pretending otherwise. The ethical man waits for justice. The strategic man enforces outcomes. Most men were raised with a simple script. If I do the right thing, things will work out. They believe the system is fair. That truth wins. That karma is real. But in the real world, justice doesn't fall from the sky. It's enforced by those with power, leverage, and strategy. And if you don't have those things, your justice is just a wish, a complaint, a tweet. You say, but that's not fair. Reality says, fairness is a function of force. If you've ever watched a competent but naive man get crushed by a manipulative rival, you've seen this principle at work. The competent man waits for recognition. The manipulator takes it. The just man follows protocol. The effective man shapes the protocol. One believes in the rules, the other writes them. And here's where most men get trapped. They mistake moral clarity for moral power. But the world doesn't run on clarity. It runs on coercion, leverage, and control. Ask yourself, when was the last time being fair made you stronger? You held back to be just. They took the lead. You apologized to be ethical. They used your apology as proof of guilt. You gave second chances. They used them to stab you twice. That's not justice. That's self-sabotage dressed up as virtue. If your sense of fairness constantly puts you at a disadvantage, it's not noble. It's outdated. You're fighting with honor in a war where everyone else is using drones. Effectiveness is the only justice that matters in a ruthless world. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He didn't say to be cruel. He said be effective first, and fair when you can afford it. This is real-world moral triage. You don't give mercy to a man who would slit your throat. You don't play by rules that were designed to keep you in check. And you don't wait for fairness in a world where the strong dictate what fairness means. So when the moment comes, and it always does, will you act for what's right or for what works? Because those who can't make that decision end up being examples, stories of what should have been, footnotes in someone else's victory. You don't owe the world your justice. You owe yourself results. Most men confuse two completely different concepts: being good and being strong. One is moral, the other is strategic. One is praised in sermons, the other is feared in boardrooms. It's time to kill the confusion. Virtue is not virtue. In modern language, virtue means kindness, humility, forgiveness, and obedience. But when Machiavelli spoke of virtue, he meant something far more dangerous and far more useful. Virtue is willpower under pressure. It's strategic aggression. It's the ability to bend fortune to your will, not by hoping but by acting. Virtue is courage with claws. Virtue is ethics on your terms. It is not passive. It does not kneel. It does not wait for permission. Christian virtue tells you to turn the other cheek. Virtue tells you to guard your throat and strike back twice. One turns you into a lamb, the other into a lion. Now ask yourself, what does the world reward? The lamb gets slaughtered, the lion gets respected. This isn't just philosophy, it's survival. Look around. How many men were taught that humility would bring opportunity, that patience would be repaid with power, that being meek would make them leaders? And what did they get? Resentment, rejection, regret. Because the world doesn't reward moral purity. It rewards force, clarity, decisiveness, the exact qualities that define virtue. The world doesn't fear good men. It fears capable men. The ones who can negotiate peace and launch war. The ones who can speak with grace and act with brutality when needed. The ones who can forgive, but never forget. You were told to be a good man. But what you should have been taught is this: be a dangerous man who chooses when to be good. That's virtue. It's the steel beneath the smile. It's the ability to walk into chaos and impose order, not because you were told to, but because you chose to. And it is the exact opposite of the morality taught to weaken men today. Christian virtue says, "Blessed are the meek." Virtue says, "Blessed are those who act before being acted upon." This is not a call to cruelty. It's a call to capability. It's about having the force of will to shape outcomes, rather than be shaped by them. The world doesn't need more harmless men. It needs more strategic ones. Men who can navigate chaos without becoming lost in it. Men who can carry power without becoming drunk on it. Men who understand you can be ethical, but only if you're strong enough to choose it freely. There's a brutal truth every man must face. Your ethics are only respected if you have power. Without power, your moral stance is just noise, a performance, a signpost that says, "I won't fight back." In the jungle of human interaction, business, politics, relationships, unconditional ethics signal vulnerability. They tell the predators, "I will not retaliate." They tell your rivals, "I will play fair no matter what you do." They tell your competitors, "You can cheat, I won't." That's not virtue. That's an invitation to be exploited. Ethics without leverage is surrender. You see this every day. The man at work who gets steamrolled because he refuses to stoop to their level. The husband who lets disrespect slide because he doesn't want to be toxic. The leader who loses his position because he was too principled to outmaneuver his enemies. They all have something in common. They confuse moral consistency with moral strength. But in the real world, moral consistency without adaptability gets you eaten alive. Let's be clear, there's a time to show mercy. There's a time to be fair. There's a time to walk away with dignity. But those are strategic choices, not obligations. If your ethics aren't backed by the power to enforce them or the intelligence to bend them, you're not being moral. You're being weak. The battlefield doesn't care about your intentions. It measures your effectiveness. Imagine a general who refuses to use deception in war because it's dishonorable. He'll be defeated by a lesser enemy who understands that war is not about fairness. It's about survival. Now apply that to your life. You think being ethical makes you safe, but in many cases it makes you predictable. And predictability is a strategic liability. When people know you'll always do the right thing, they can shape their actions around it. They can lie, deceive, betray, and count on you to respond with dignity instead of force. That's how power is taken. That's how trust is weaponized. That's how ethical men are disarmed before the first shot is fired. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He wrote, "It is necessary for a prince to know how to do wrong when the necessity arises, not because evil is desirable, but because being bound by rigid morality in a world without rules is suicidal." He wasn't advocating cruelty. He was advocating competence. The competence to navigate betrayal. The competence to punish treachery. The competence to know when ethics serve the mission and when they sabotage it. This is what the ethical man forgets. Morality is not a shield. It is a tool. You use it when it strengthens your position. You abandon it when it weakens it. Not because you are cruel, but because you are not stupid. So here's the question every man must answer. Will you die on the hill of being morally right? Or will you learn to win with strategic precision? Because the world doesn't reward good intentions. It rewards good results. Principle without power is not virtue. It's a death sentence. Throughout history, men have fallen not because they were wrong, but because they were too right, too early, and too rigid. Let's look at what happens when morality is treated as a religion instead of a weapon. 1. Julius Caesar, assassinated by the Senate. He forgave. Caesar was a military genius, a political tactician, a man who redefined Rome. But he made one fatal mistake. He forgave his enemies. He allowed Brutus and other conspirators, men who had opposed and betrayed him, to live, to remain in power, and to walk freely in his presence. He thought mercy would earn him loyalty. Instead, it earned him 17 stab wounds on the Senate floor. Why? Because power invites envy, and mercy without control invites betrayal. His ethics didn't save him. His strategy failed, and the result was death at the hands of those he spared. 2. Nicholas II of Russia, the moral monarch who lost his empire. Nicholas II was the last Tsar of Russia, a man devoted to his family, his country, and his faith. He tried to rule with compassion. He refused to use overwhelming force against revolutionaries. He delayed harsh measures. He listened to voices calling for peace. And what happened? His country fell into chaos. His family was executed, and the Romanov dynasty ended in blood and bullets. His ethical restraint didn't protect him. It doomed him. The mob respects power, not piety. 3. Yahoo, a tech giant that played fair and lost. In the early 2000s, Yahoo had the lead. They had the users, the brand, the infrastructure. But they also had a fatal flaw. They played safe. They followed the rules. They avoided bold, risky moves in favor of doing things the right way. Then came Google. Faster, smarter, more aggressive. Google didn't wait. They out-engineered. They out-strategized. They dominated. Yahoo had the head start. Google had the killer instinct. Today, Yahoo is a shadow. Google is the empire. 4. Neville Chamberlain, the man who appeased Hitler. Chamberlain believed in diplomacy, peace, and trust. He believed Hitler would honor agreements. He signed the Munich Agreement, declared peace in our time. Less than a year later, Hitler invaded Poland. The result? World War II. His moral optimism didn't delay war, it enabled it. It was only when Churchill, a man of virtue, took power that Britain began to fight with resolve. Chamberlain's ethics made him a historical footnote. Churchill's strategic realism made him a legend. The pattern is clear: ethical men often fall hardest, not because ethics are wrong, but because they forget the game they're playing. Mercy without dominance invites enemies. Fairness without leverage invites manipulation. Hope without strategy invites destruction. In politics, business, and war, the same rule applies. If you can't enforce your ethics, they're just empty gestures. Machiavelli didn't admire cruelty. He admired clarity. The clarity to see that goodness is not enough. If you lack the strength to back your morality with force, you're not a leader. You're a placeholder, waiting to be removed by someone with less heart, but more spine. In the game of power, appearance is everything. Not truth, not purity, not even competence, appearance. This is where most ethical men fail, and where strategic men win. Because the real masters of the game don't abandon ethics. They weaponize them. They don't act ethically to be righteous. They act as if they are ethical, to gain trust, influence, and cover. This is the art that separates the lions from the lambs. It is necessary to appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious, and upright, but also to be capable of acting against these virtues when necessary. Machiavelli, the prince, read that again. Not be merciful, appear merciful. Not be faithful, appear faithful. Because perception governs power, and perception is malleable. The appearance of ethics is currency. The reality of ethics is a constraint. Why do politicians kiss babies? Why do CEOs post about charity while laying off thousands? Because they understand what most honest men never learn. Image protects you. Intentions don't. In a world where few investigate, many assume. If you look ethical, sound ethical, and act ethical in public, you are ethical. By default, that's the mask. And behind that mask, you operate with strategic freedom. You make brutal decisions with a smile. You wield fear under the banner of fairness. You remove threats while preaching unity. This is not hypocrisy. This is control. The man who insists on full transparency is exposing his own weapons. The man who insists on being consistent is imprisoning himself. But the man who adapts, who knows when to project virtue and when to strike with vice, is untouchable. He controls both the battlefield and the narrative. Let's break it down. In business, you promote fairness, but negotiate like a predator. In leadership, you praise loyalty, but test it constantly. In relationships, you show care, but never give away full control. Because your morality is not for others to measure. It's for you to deploy like a sword. The weak reveal their ethics. The strong conceal their strategy. Most people wear their morality like armor, hoping it will protect them. Strategic men wear it like camouflage, hiding their true position, buying time, earning trust. And when the moment comes, they strike from the shadows, not the podium. This is how power is taken. This is how kingdoms are won. You don't need to be unethical. You need to be unbound. Able to switch masks, able to bend without breaking, able to deceive without losing direction. Because those who cling to ethics for identity become prisoners, and those who master the illusion of ethics become kings. Machiavelli was never anti-ethics. He was anti-naivety. He didn't reject morality. He redefined it, not as a code to follow, but as a tool to use. Ethics, in his hands, became tactical, flexible, disposable. Because when you enter a world ruled by ambition, betrayal, and power, rigid ethics become suicide notes. The ethical man asks, "Is this right?" The strategic man asks, "Will this work?" There's a difference. Right is subjective, effective is measurable. Right makes you feel good. Effective gets you results. And Machiavelli's genius was this. He understood that you can still use ethics, but only when they serve your outcome. Let's break down his moral toolkit. 1. Appearances. Essence. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Perception is more powerful than reality. It doesn't matter if you're loyal, if they think you're a traitor. It doesn't matter if you're strong, if they see hesitation. So you control the image. You project integrity, even while making cutthroat decisions. You wear the mask of virtue to hide the hand of calculation. This is how kings survive. This is how players stay 10 moves ahead. 2. Vice is a tool, not an identity. A prince must learn how not to be good, not to be evil, not to be cruel, but to be capable of it when the mission demands it. Most men are trapped in the fear of being seen as bad. The strategic man, he's indifferent. He'll break trust if the trust was a trap. He'll betray the betrayer without guilt. He'll lie, cheat, or silence if it means saving the mission, because his virtue is measured in outcomes, not opinions. 3. Mercy only when it reinforces fear. It is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Modern men seek approval. Strategic men seek control. Mercy is only useful if it reinforces your dominance. If people respect your kindness because they know what you're capable of doing if crossed, then it's power. But if your mercy signals weakness, hesitation, or fear, it's a vulnerability. And in Machiavelli's world, vulnerabilities are exploited, not forgiven. 4. Loyalty is a transaction. Loyalty is not permanent, it's conditional. The moment your power fades, loyalty evaporates. The moment your utility dies, so does their allegiance. This is not cynicism, this is mechanics. So what do? You buy loyalty. You test loyalty. You use loyalty, until it becomes a risk. Then you remove it. Emotionally, cold. Strategically, correct. 5. The ends do justify the means. If the ends are survival, you don't burn the city for nothing. But if burning the city saves the kingdom, you light the match. The modern man says that's wrong. The strategic man says, what's the alternative? Let your enemies live and regroup. Let your rivals regroup and retaliate. Let your ideals bury your future. No. The ends justify the means if the ends are real, necessary, and brutal enough. Machiavelli's toolkit is not for cowards. It's for the man who understands that ethics are only noble when they're backed by strength, clarity, and will. Because when the wolves come, your code won't save you. Only your strategy will. Now that you understand the trap of blind ethics, here's the question that matters. How do you use strategy, not just to survive, but to dominate? Because power isn't given to the most moral. It's taken by the most prepared. You're not here to be good. You're here to win. And that requires one thing above all: strategic intelligence. Let's break it into 3 levels. Level 1, survival. Outthink, outlast, outsmart. At this level, you're not trying to lead. You're trying not to get eaten. Every environment has predators. Some smile, some attack, some just wait. Your job? Stop being easy prey. Tactical rules for survival. Be unpredictable. Predictability is a target. Never show your full intent. Conceal ambition behind casualness. Learn silence. Information is currency. Spend it wisely. Expect betrayal. Be ready, not bitter. Don't assume loyalty. Test it constantly. Here, strategy is about defense. You're learning to read the game while staying alive in it. Level 2, thrive. Turn enemies into assets. Now you're not just surviving, you're manipulating terrain. You don't fight every threat. You redirect them. You don't crush rivals unless necessary. You co-opt, infiltrate, or outposition. Strategic principles to thrive. Control perception. Appear useful to everyone, essential to some, dangerous to none. Build alliances with leverage, not emotion. Create dependency. Make others need you more than you need them. Use conflict wisely. A public enemy can build your image. Always play 2 games. The one in front of you, and the one 10 moves ahead. At this level, morality becomes a narrative. Strategy becomes your compass. Level 3, lead. Command without begging. Now you're not just playing the game. You are the game. Leadership isn't about being liked. It's about being respected, necessary, and feared where needed. Strategic rules of command. Speak less. When you do, make every word move something. Delegate trust, never power. Make your presence costly. Make your absence felt. Punish disloyalty once, and make it legendary. Never ask for respect. Take actions that make disrespect impossible. Real leaders use ethics like seasoning, not as the main course. They don't wear morality, they wield it. And when they choose to be fair, just, or merciful, it's because it serves the mission, not because it makes them feel good. Strategy is the new morality. In a world of chaos, betrayal, and noise, strategy is clarity. Strategy is armor. Strategy is freedom. Most men wait for life to be fair. Strategic men don't wait. They act, they lead, they win. Not because they are cruel, but because they refuse to be powerless. Let's end the fantasy once and for all. The world doesn't protect good men. It consumes them. It uses their patience, exploits their kindness, rides their loyalty, until they're empty, bitter, and discarded. Meanwhile, the men who rise, the ones who rule, lead, and survive, are not always the most ethical, but they are always the most strategic. This is the final shift most never make. They keep trying to win with goodness. They keep expecting fairness. They keep hoping someone will finally see how decent they are. But the game was never built to reward decency. It was built to reward dominance, discipline, and design. This world protects what it fears, and it fears the man who doesn't flinch, the man who can lie to protect the truth, the man who can walk away from approval. The man who chooses when to be kind, not because he has to, but because he can. The world bends to strategy, not sentiment. You think morality is a shield? No, power is the shield. Morality is the story you write on it. You think being a good man will earn you peace? No. Being a strong man earns you peace. Being a strategic man keeps it. History doesn't remember the pure. It remembers the effective. It doesn't matter how noble your intentions were if you failed. It doesn't matter how ethical you were if you were erased. What matters is what you built, what you defended, what you won. This is the new code. Be ethical when it serves you, ruthless when it doesn't. Be loyal to those who prove they deserve it. Cut the rest. Be feared before you're loved. Be respected before you're praised. And never ever confuse being good with being safe. Because this world has no mercy for the weak, the predictable, or the overly principled. It only protects the man who knows when to fight, when to lie, when to smile, when to kill. Not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. You're not here to be holy. You're here to be sovereign. What would your life look like if you replaced guilt with clarity? How many times have your principles cost you progress? Are you still trying to be liked, or are you ready to be in control? If this video shattered illusions, gave you clarity, or sparked that cold fire in your chest, share it. Comment below. Are you playing to be good or to be effective? And subscribe, because the next video will teach you how to build power silently before the world even knows you're a threat.